opinions expressed are the speaker's own and does not represent legal or accounting advice or counsel and should not be seen as such. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only, a conversation. We make no promises or assertions on how this information will impact your business, your personal life, or financial well-being. The information relayed does not imply endorsement or offer opposition to any specific organization, product, or services. My name is Lori Power, and I'm your host. Let's have a conversation. Thanks for joining me, Robyn. I appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation. I always like to look at succession planning from a 360-degree viewpoint, and you bring a really interesting perspective, and this is why I really wanted to have this conversation with you, because not only are you a business owner who sold their business successfully, but then you went into that next adventure and have created that next viable business for yourself as well. And so I want to get that full scope of what that experience to this date has been like for you. So let's start a little bit. If you can tell us a little bit about yourself and how you first came to get into business.
Well, I'm Robyn Scobey. I'm with Empowering Business. That's an easy one to answer. A little bit about myself. I'm a little bit unique, like every other entrepreneur out there. I kind of fell into this entrepreneurship all kind of by luck, kind of by need of the community. I live in a small town of 800 people, and I was pregnant with my first at the time and thought, you know what? Maybe I really kind of want to get out of the hospitality industry, and I'm really like the finances. And there was a small accounting firm that was available to be purchased in our community. And I'm like, that sounds like a great idea. I'm going to go into business with Linda Simpson. And we were like, this would be great. She wants to be semi-retired. We can do this. I can be a stay-at-home mom part-time. This will be wonderful. Well, we fast forward to a couple years later, and I find myself in a position of being a single mom of 1.5 children because I was pregnant with my second. And the accounting practice was growing very quickly. It wasn't just Linda and myself, and we had one staff and a couple of part-timers. It was still growing. The community still had a need. So then we fast forward a couple more years, and 17 years later, we actually had 10 staff, including Linda and myself, and we had a really thriving, good business. And I was still a single mom. So, and I was able to be that single mom and be active in my kids' lives, but still have my business and still grow it and develop it and keep changing it.
What do you think made your business successful? Not just because the community had a need for bookkeeping and accounting services, which all communities do need. But as we know, if we fast forward it later on, that isn't the magic that makes a business successful. What do you think made your business successful in the community that you served?
I think a lot of it had to do with my passion for helping small businesses and medium-sized businesses. I really do believe, because my passion was to give and to be helpful, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're passionate about it, it will just naturally come. And I really wanted to help reduce people's taxes, but stay on board and not really take over the government or get your best refund that you can, but also teach them. I really wanted to teach people how to understand their financials, how to read them, and how to develop their businesses. So, yes, it helped my business and my community, but if we all work together, and that was a big part of it. And then I had amazing team members. My staff, they were part of my family. I really enjoyed having them around. They were great people. And they too were passionate about helping others, right? So it is having all of that, we had the systems and processes in place so that everybody was empowered to make their decisions. They knew what was expected of them in forms of our staff as well as our clients. They knew what their deadlines were. We were educating them, we were empowering them to make their decisions as well.
Did you think about selling? Did you plan on selling, or did the opportunity present itself at the door and you took advantage of an opportunity to sell the business?
That is a little bit of an odd one. So we actually had been working with one of our staff members in selling him some shares. And then when Linda and I just kind of decided we were more than done, we reached out to a business broker and found out what we were worth and were able to sell it very quickly because we did have those systems and processes in place and we had the cash flow goings. I'm
What did
sure
you
you know just as much as I do, Lori, that not every business that is profitable is saleable, and not every business that is saleable is profitable.
That's
Right?
true.
So it is a lot about having those systems in place, having a good network. And when I say network, it's not just about who you know. A lot of it is about who who supports who, right? So our clients, our staff, it's a whole circle. It's not just one thing.
Was it hard for you having ran a successful business? And we talk about it this, and we're going to get to that on the exit advisor side of things, where you now work, is when you were on the other side of the table and you are the business owner and you have a really great team. Was it hard for you to bring in other team members, outside professionals, to help through this transition through to new ownership? Was that something that you gravitated to easily, or was that something that you took a little bit of convincing for you to pull in other experts to help you through?
Combination. As an entrepreneur, I think we all have control issues. I'm not even gonna say that we don't. Um, but that was something I learned very early on in my career, like even in the hospitality when I was running the hotels and things. I didn't I knew I couldn't do it alone. I needed that team, but I still tried to do it on my own, like every other entrepreneur in this world. So it was an internal fight constantly about, no, I need help. No, I need to take their advice. This is how I'm going to move forward.
What did the timeline look like for you from the time that you had basically you and Linda made the decision to sell to when the paperwork was signed and the new owner was in place?
We were I can't say we were lucky because we did have everything in place that made it quite saleable very quickly. And some of it is luck. We actually, from the day we decide, no, from the day we had the conversation that we might want to sell to the day that the new owner had taken possession was 6 months.
Wow, that is really
It
fast.
was very quick, which then created some of those outside emotions of, wow, I wasn't prepared because I didn't think it was going to be that fast.
Now you didn't necessarily have to walk away right away. You stayed on as part of that sale for a certain period of time. What was that like to change hands, to give over the reins, but yet still be part of the business?
That was probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I thought being a single mom was hard. I thought being an entrepreneur was hard, but giving up control, I'll be honest, the accounting practice was my baby. I had given everything to it for 17 years. And then just to not be the one in control suddenly, not being in charge of, yes, I want to give my staff time off. Yes, I want to help this client. And being told I had to be put into a box and I could only spend so much time with each client based off of what the profits were, which I understood theoretically wise. And I had preached to my staff about, but I couldn't follow it myself. It was very difficult.
I
I
really value you opening up like that because this is something that I'm keen to learn about. I think it is something that perhaps business owners aren't comfortable talking about, is that aftermath. And I really appreciate that because I've often wondered when I'm interviewing people, and especially people who are in the mergers and acquisitions side, and that is fairly common, as I understand it, to keep the previous owner on in a consulting role for, 18 months to 2 years to help transition that business. But I have always thought myself, if I had to do that, I'm better to walk away and cut it off than to keep me around because, like you, I would feel very out of sorts. I would be like a buoy in the ocean going, well, wait, now where's my boat?
that is exactly how I felt. It I don't even know if I was like a buoy. I think I had the chain on my ankle pulling me under the water. It was very hard. If I could do it again, I think I probably would take a little bit more time prior to making sure I had the ability to just say, "No, this isn't mine anymore." Excuse me. I would be able to take that step back a little bit, find my new network of people. And when I say network, I kind of felt like I lost everybody. And my st- I b- and I don't blame my staff because I really did think we were a big part of a family, but they also felt betrayed because they didn't know the transition was happening until it was a done deal. So they felt betrayed. I finally felt this relief of I can be honest on the day of the sale and when I could make the announcement. But everybody else was doing why? Why didn't you feel like you could come talk to me? Why? And they felt betrayed. Excuse me. Right? So it was a weird transition. Nobody knew their place anymore, not the staff. The clients also felt a little bit like, what are you doing? Why are you leaving us? You've been a big part of our community. And the new owner was going, I need to meet all these people. And it was this, I was feeling pulled in a lot of different directions. And I kind of thought that I would have been able to take more of a step back. I didn't realize that transition, how it plays on a mental toll on the past owner.
And you have to, and you're contractually obligated to stay. But do you mind if we delve a little bit more into the employee part? That's my heart and soul is how the employees transition from one owner to the next. And you hit on that topic that is near and dear to my heart because just as you've said, many owners feel that they are bound by a non disclosure, that they can't talk to their staff, yet staff understand something's amiss, and then you run the risk of losing talent. My role as an exit planner is to work with the staff to moderate that communication piece between those at the table cutting the deal for the transition down to the staff. Not everything, not the nitty gritty, but understanding that staff are going to be impacted by a new ownership. And I see my role as transitioning your top talent, your employees from that previous ownership into the new ownership effectively. You had said your staff felt betrayed. What was the fallout for that?
For us on a personal level, because we spend more time with our staff than I did with my actual family, right? And when you actually break it down in a day to day, that is very true. So they were maybe not as close as a family, but I spent more time with them. So they felt very betrayed. They kind of, and they didn't know their place anymore. I'm not going to criticize them at all. They went from Robin and Linda are my boss. I know exactly what is expected of me, when is expected. I know how to ask for time off. I know how, like, right down to how to answer the phone. And now suddenly they're pulled into a meeting that they knew was off because we didn't have meetings at that time of the year. We did it in a neutral setting. They know something's coming up, and they are hit with a huge change, very big change. And I no longer know my place. I no longer know what is expected of me. They don't know what's expected. So there was that, nobody knew how to communicate with anybody. Nobody, I think it is amazing that if you have somebody you can bring in to help maneuver that a little bit. The new owner did do some things that I thought were really good ideas. Like he did increase their salaries, he did, but there was still too much distance and it wasn't the same. And we had very long-term staff and very loyal staff, not just to me, but to the community and our clients.
Did it come as a surprise to you, the reaction of the staff at that point? Had it ever even come up in conversation with the professionals that you had engaged to get through the buyout? Was that did it come as a surprise?
Very much so. I I don't know what I expected. I don't think anybody had really, people had told us your staff aren't going to be over the moon about this. They're going to be, but I never really knew what to expect. And I didn't, I have teenagers, right? So I learned to expect the unexpected with them. I get how to go with the flow a little bit, but I never really thought that I was going to feel that way. And I felt for them as much as they had every right to feel betrayed. They had every right to feel their feelings and confusion and scared and didn't know, they didn't know if they had their job, even though I knew I put it in the contract that they couldn't be let go. I rolled my staff over because of how our sale was. If he decided to let any of our staff go, they were long-term staff. He was going to pay out huge amounts of dollars, right? Like I had covered for them as much as I could. So that part of it, I did what I thought was right, and I don't know if I could have done any more in the circumstances.
No,
I
and
really couldn't.
absolutely. So my job is not to point a finger at you and say, "Hey, you should have."
No,
I'm very curious as to what that felt like as a business owner and to get that conversation on the table. And what you're pointing out to me goes back to, I think, the fundamentals of who you are as a business owner, goes to those systems and processes. Your employees were very used to their systems and processes, and this perhaps threw them right off into now, as you said, who do I report to? Who do I ask for time off? Where do we fall now in that system and process placement?
yes. And the new owner did come in and he talked, he didn't make changes right away, but he talked about changes. Changing the programs we were using for taxes, changing how we did old school timesheets with paper. And we just found it was easier to jot it down than to open up a computer program. He talked about the changes, which created more insecurities, more, and not just amongst the staff. It terrified me because I'm like, whoa, you can't do that. Our contract says, right? So some of it was on me as well as the staff, but we were all in this really weird position and didn't know how open and honest could we be with the new owner. How is this going to be perceived? How, it felt like we were back to our first 30 days of a new job for all of us.
Well, and the new owner needs to make their bones, right? They need to create that ownership. Now, what I admire a lot about you and why I'm so grateful that you decided to have a conversation with me is how you've taken your experiences and applied them to what we might call that next adventure. But you've taken those experiences and now you work with business owners. Can you tell me about what the new business looks like for you?
I absolutely love empowering business. I work with accountants and bookkeepers, so I'm not actually doing the taxes and the bookkeeping anymore, but I'm still teaching. It is that educational part, helping businesses understand their financials, The part of the accounting world I really loved, sitting down with a business owner, small to medium size, and going, you know what? Right here, this is where your bread and butter is. Did you know you're actually making a 30% profit on this item? Have you thought about looking at this? Are you looking at your lost opportunity cost or income that you could be missing? And really helping because there we find that there's as your business grows, when you're a one person place, you don't write your systems and processes. You don't have anything. You're just winging it. You're everything from the plumber right up to whatever industry you're in. You are doing everything. But as you're growing and you hire your first staff, learning how to delegate to that staff, how to document, how to make sure you're getting the best value out of your staff.
One of the things that you had said to me before as well is the business owner knowing their lane, right? They don't have to be the top bottle washer and salesperson all rolled into one. And as we know, to have a viable business that's going to be attractive to a buyer, they're going to need to step away and allow those systems and processes to do the work.
Absolutely. And as a business owner, I wish yeah, it was one of the questions that everybody always asks. What's one of those things that you would have done earlier in your entrepreneurship? I personally would have gone a little bit earlier and created really good systems and processes, which also it's not just the systems and processes, but it's enabling everybody to know where their lane is, what is expected, how to do's. So I'm not always the one that was getting the questions. If I would have created those probably when we hired our first staff member, life would have been so much easier. And I would have been able to go on more holidays. I would have been able to take a step back much sooner and maybe not experience the same burnout.
And, you talked about empowering your staff and how over those 17 years you grew into that. So your staff knew what they were going to do and they were empowered to make those decisions. Empowering your staff to make those decisions is conducive of having those systems and processes. Everybody understands. So them coming to you, you're looking at the same booklet. You're going, okay, well, in this situation, this is what I would do. So now your staff know that they can do those things.
Right. And it saved a lot of questions coming to me, going, how do I? What should I tell them? Which also helps the our clients and our customers because they didn't have to be put on hold. They didn't have to wait for an answer. They got their answers. They knew we were all smart. They knew we could all do it. And they had the one person that they could go to.
When I get asked what's the one thing that you would tell people or tell your younger self when you first get into business, and I say now that I wish I had understood the J curve, right? I wish I had understood that business isn't a hockey stick or a check mark. Business is a J curve, and the sooner you start to learn to invest in yourself and know that there's a cost that's going to impact you and it's going to hurt for a little while but necessary in order to make that rise. That is one of the pieces of advice that I would like to tell Lori 20 some years ago to say, listen, it's going to be okay. You're going to come out of that trough. And because you've invested wisely with people and surrounded yourself with those professionals, you'll be able to accelerate faster. But I think what happens is sometimes we as entrepreneurs, we want to do everything ourselves. And so we elongate that J curve by trying to do it ourselves until finally we get those professionals in the room.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And it's not even like just always the professionals, it can be any process along the way. I now look at any job I am doing. Is this the best use of my time? Is this really where I'm going to the end goal of being an entrepreneur is to make money. Is this really where I'm making my money or do I need to look somewhere else? Is this some or there is lots of things that I do because they're feel good to Robyn. They make me feel good, they fill my bucket, so therefore I'm gonna keep doing it. But I make that very consciously, going, "You know what? This feels good. This feels right. This is giving back to my community. This is helping somebody that really could use the help. I know it's not making me money, but it feels good, and that's okay." And that when I talked about the lost opportunities, there's a huge amount of small businesses and medium-sized businesses here in Alberta that just don't, you're not thinking outside the box of what happens if I extend my hours? What happens if I delegate, we'll use social marketing? Or yes, so right, if I hire somebody to do my Facebook ads, that opens up my time. So now I can actually make money over here, or I can train a staff member to become a little bit more empowered and to be able to do a little bit more. So just looking at it and going, where is my time best spent to make the most out of growing my business?
Well, and time wasted is time that you never get again. There is no second chances on time wastage. There just isn't. You don't get it back.
No. And I often put this towards like raising children, right? I'm never going to get back when my child, I have 16 and 18-year-old now, but I'm never going to get back my 14-year-old son. That time is gone.
Yeah.
That's the same in business.
Once it's gone, it's gone. When you're working with businesses now, what is your kind of your fail safe, that one process that businesses seem to overlook or keep in their head? They're doing it, but it's not written down. And is there a common place there where we as business owners can have a look at our and go, do we actually have a system for that? Is there actually a process written down for that? What is that one thing that you find?
For business owners, truthfully, I want to say it's their annual plan. They often have it in their head, but they've never written it down. So therefore, they're not holding themselves accountable. It sounds so basic. Is that anything from I want to grow my business by 5%? I want to hire an assistant to help me, but they never write it down. So then pretty soon we're looking, it'll be November, and they're like, oh, I didn't do that yet.
That is a very good thing. Now, what would you tell Robyn early in her career to prepare for succession that you are going to apply this time around when you get somebody who's interested in buying your business now, knowing that you're going to go with the experience that you've had? What is the one thing you're going to do differently next time?
Early in my business stage, I would start my systems and processes much sooner. And I would also remember there is more to Robyn than my business. I had put in too much emphasis on being a mom and a business owner. And just because of circumstances, both my children moved out pretty soon after because my son billets in the winter as he's a hockey player, but and my daughter went to university. So not only did I lose what I thought was my friends, my community, and everything because I sold my business, because my business was my social world, but I also lost the other side of it of being a mom because they're gone in the winter. So making sure I took more time for me personally, looking after my self-wealth or my self-care much earlier in the process.
I love that you bring up identity, and so much of ourselves is wrapped into our identity, into the business we serve, into being a parent. I can't even tell you how much I value you bringing that up, because that is another one of those topics that business owners don't want to touch on, but is so fundamental to selling that business.
It is, and it is so important to really, I can only grow as much, my business can only grow as much as I am looking after myself. My family can only grow as much as I am looking after myself. So really, and understanding what self-care means to you, I think
That
is a huge part.
You are somebody to be admired. I really I really appreciate the journey that you've gone through. I appreciate the work that you're doing now, and I most value that I can call you a friend and that we can have these conversations. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you, Lori, because I think entrepreneurship, as you know, as much as I know, it's a lonely journey. And if you can create those friends, we call them networks, but in business, it's really creating friendships and knowing you're not alone. Going out to those events, meeting people, shaking hands is really important.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.